This is the High Voltage Business Builders Podcast, daily intelligence for serious e-commerce portfolio builders across Amazon, TikTok Shop, Shopify, Walmart, and every channel that moves the needle. Neil Twa and his Voltage team all day, every day since 2012. Let's get into it.
$1.5 million. That's not a rounding error. That's not a bad quarter. That's the number David LeBlanc calculated when he looked back at every stockout his business had experienced and estimated what those empty listings actually cost him in lost sales. He wasn't a beginner when he figured this out. He was already doing $850,000 a month. That's the part that should stop you cold. Because if you're doing $10,000 a month right now, you might think inventory management is a problem you'll solve later, once you're bigger, once you have more data, once you can afford better tools. David's story says otherwise. The habits that cost him $1.5 million didn't start when he hit $850K. They started when his business was small and the stakes felt low enough to ignore. Here's what actually happened. David came into the Voltage program doing around $30,000 a month. He scaled fast. He went from 6 SKUs to over 100. Monthly revenue climbed past $850K. And through almost all of it, he ran roughly 90% organic, meaning paid ads were a fraction of his overhead. His margins looked good on paper, but inventory? That was the hole in the boat. Every time a listing went out of stock, it didn't just pause revenue, it reset ranking, it handed sales to competitors, it cost him reorder lead time he hadn't planned for, and at scale, those gaps compounded into a number that made him physically uncomfortable when he finally ran the math: $1.5 million in foregone revenue. Preventable. So the question isn't whether stockouts are hurting your business right now. They almost certainly are. The question is, do you know by how much?
Stockouts are a cash flow problem, disguised as a logistics problem. That distinction matters, because most sellers treat inventory management like a fulfillment task, something you handle after the sale is already happening. David's story exposes what it actually is: a revenue forecasting failure that shows up weeks after the decision that caused it. Here's the mechanics. When your listing goes out of stock on Amazon, 3 things happen simultaneously. First, you stop generating sales. Obvious. Second, your organic ranking begins to decay. Amazon's algorithm interprets 0 sales velocity as reduced relevance. Depending on how competitive your category is, you can lose weeks or months of ranking progress in a matter of days. Third, your competitors absorb your demand. Shoppers don't wait, they click the next option. Some of them don't come back. Now scale that to your business. If you're doing $10,000 a month across a handful of SKUs and one of your top sellers goes out of stock for 2 weeks, you might lose $3,000 to $5,000 in direct sales. That's painful, but survivable. But the ranking reset, that can cost you another $5,000 to $10,000 over the following 60 days as you rebuild velocity. The real cost of that stockout isn't $3,000, it's closer to $15,000. Multiply that across 100 SKUs and 18 months of growth, and you arrive at David's number. The underlying issue is almost always the same. Sellers forecast inventory based on recent sales history without accounting for velocity acceleration. Your business is growing. Your reorder quantities need to grow faster than your current run rate, not match it. If you're spending $2,000 a month on ads to drive traffic to a listing that's about to go out of stock, you're not just losing the sale, you're paying to lose it. That's the insight. Inventory isn't a back office function. It's a revenue protection decision you make 60 to 90 days before the problem shows up.
Let's look at 2 sellers. Same underlying problem, very different scales, very different consequences. First seller, a home goods brand doing about $25,000 a month. 4 core SKUs. One of them, a kitchen organization product, accounts for roughly 40% of revenue. She's been selling for 14 months. Organic rank is strong. She reorders when she gets the low inventory notification from Seller Central. That notification triggers when she has about 2 weeks of stock left. Her supplier is in China. Lead time is 6 weeks door to door. She's been lucky. Twice she got stock in just before she hit 0. The third time she didn't. She went out of stock for 11 days. Direct revenue loss, about $3,600. Ranking recovery took 47 days. Total estimated impact, over $12,000. On a $25K a month business, that's a serious wound. What she fixed, she stopped using Seller Central's notification as her reorder trigger. She built a simple spreadsheet: daily sales velocity, lead time in days, safety stock buffer of 30 days.
Reorder point is now calculated, not felt. Second seller, David LeBlanc, $850,000 a month, 100 plus SKUs. The same root problem, but multiplied across a catalog where even a mid-tier SKU doing $15,000 a month going out of stock for 10 days costs $5,000 in direct revenue and potentially $20,000 to $30,000 in ranking recovery costs. At that scale, inventory management isn't a spreadsheet problem anymore. It's a systems problem. David moved to a structured replenishment model with lead time buffers built by SKU, not averaged across the catalog. The fix wasn't complicated. The cost of not fixing it was. This is what sellers who survive platform changes and their own growth do differently. They stop managing inventory reactively and start managing it like the revenue protection function it actually is.
3 moves. Every level can execute these. Move 1. Calculate your actual stockout cost, not just the missed sales. Take your last stockout. How many days were you out? Multiply your daily sales average by that number. That's your direct loss. Now estimate your ranking recovery time, typically 2x to 4x the number of days you were out of stock, depending on category competitiveness. Apply your daily revenue to that recovery window at a 20% to 40% discount, because you're rebuilding, not running at full velocity. Add both numbers together. That's your real stockout cost. Do this for every stockout in the last 12 months. If you've never done this math, the number will surprise you. It surprised David. Move 2. Build a reorder point that accounts for your growth rate, not just your current velocity. If your sales are growing 15% month over month, your reorder quantity from 3 months ago is already wrong. Your formula: average daily sales times lead time in days, plus average daily sales times safety stock days. Safety stock minimum, 30 days. If you're in a high velocity category or growing fast, push that to 45. Recalculate every 30 days. Small sellers, do this in a spreadsheet. It takes 20 minutes to set up and saves you months of ranking recovery. Advanced operators, this calculation should be automated and flagged by SKU, not averaged across your catalog. Your top 20% of SKUs by revenue deserve individual lead time and buffer profiles. Move 3. Stop using Seller Central's low inventory alert as your reorder trigger. By the time that notification fires, you're already behind. Build your own trigger. Set it earlier. Treat it like a hard deadline, not a suggestion. Inventory is a revenue decision. Make it like one.
David LeBlanc's story isn't a cautionary tale about a seller who didn't know what he was doing. It's a story about a seller who was doing almost everything right and still left $1.5 million on the table because one operational blind spot compounded quietly over time. That's the nature of inventory mistakes. They don't announce themselves. They show up in your year-end numbers and make you wonder where the revenue went. If you're just starting out, the lesson is simple. Build the habit now. The math is the same at $10,000 a month as it is at $850,000. The consequences are just bigger later. If you're already operating at scale, the question isn't whether this is happening in your business, it's how much it's costing you, and whether your current systems can actually tell you. This is exactly the kind of operational depth we work through inside Voltage. Not theory, not templates handed to you by someone who's never run a catalog. Operator-led guidance built from 13 years of actually doing this. Sourcing, scaling, managing inventory across hundreds of SKUs, and helping sellers at every level build businesses that hold up under real growth pressure. David went from $30,000 a month to over $850,000. He'll also tell you the mistakes he made along the way were as instructive as the wins. That's the kind of transparency we operate with. If you want to know what a conversation with the Voltage team looks like, go to voltagedm.com. No pressure, no pitch deck. Just an honest look at where your business is and what it could be. You've been listening to the High Voltage Business Builders podcast. Build smart, protect your revenue, and don't let a spreadsheet problem cost you 7 figures.
That's a wrap on today's episode. If something we covered today sparked an idea or made you wonder where you actually fit in the e-commerce landscape, there's a good place to start. Head over to voltagedm.com/discover. Answer a few questions, and we'll point you toward the right path for where you are right now. We'll be back tomorrow with another edge. Until then, stay high voltage.